Good afternoon. I'm Chris McCoy. I'm here with Chief Sneed. Chief Sneed, throughout the shutdown, tribal employees have been able to be compensated, with the pandemic happening and some other programs as well. What are you hearing in the community from those employees that may be affected by this negatively?
Right. Well, I mean, I've heard from several small business owners, and I think, I don't want to say more importantly, but equally as important, I've heard from those frontline workers, from servers, who work at our local restaurants, who they really count on and rely on tips.
Right.
And since dining rooms are closed, they're not getting tips, and they're, they've seen their income basically drop off to almost nothing. And these are tribal citizens,
Absolutely.
Said, well, what about me? I'm a tribal member too. And some of the local small hotels that are owned by tribal members and who operate them. And, we've closed all the hotels.
Right.
So again, they're like, hey, is there going to be anything done to help us? And so with that in mind, I coordinated with the Secretary of the Treasury, and I said, look, we need to come up with something to help those tribal citizens that are small business owners or who work for small businesses who are being negatively impacted. So what we came up with, we created a plan that we've put in resolution form. We're going to present it to Tribal Council for their approval, and really looking for broad support on this one. Essentially what we would do is, and so the public at home understand, tribal levy is basically the sales tax that all of the small businesses collect. Every time you spend money in Cherokee, that 7.75%, whatever the amount is collected as tribal levy, and then those businesses remit that money to the Treasury Department.
Right.
And then that money is used to provide for government services. Again, it's a small percentage of, obviously compared to gaming, it's a very small percentage.
Right.
So what we've come up with is basically a matrix that says if you've paid in X number of dollars into tribal levy, we will give a rebate to your business in the amount of, and so there's a scale. So
okay.
So essentially, if you paid in, let's say you're a really, really small business,
right,
and you've paid in less than $1,000 as of October 1 of fiscal year 2020, and you've paid in less than $1,000. Let's say you paid in $750.
Okay.
We're going to rebate that $750 back to you.
Okay.
It's not much, but it's just a little bit to, you got a little bit
help
of
out in this time.
That's it.
Absolutely. Operationally, or to cover some of your overhead.
Right. So then how the scale works after that is the more you pay in, that percentage goes down. So for example, if you paid in $20,000 to $30,000, you would be granted 45% rebate of the tribal levy that you paid in. So essentially what we're saying is you collected this money as a result of your business being here on the boundary. This money you collected as sales tax, we're going to give you this percentage back.
Okay.
To help you through this time. Now, the reason being is it's really threefold. Number one, we want those businesses to be here once all this is over.
Correct.
Rest assured, across the country, there are going to be businesses that do not survive. There are going to be large corporations that do not survive. We want to make sure that the business infrastructure that we have, that has been the backbone of our economy long before gaming got here, is still here and operational when all of this is over. The other thing that we want to make sure is that those employees, because keeping in mind, keeping folks employed in these small businesses, it's tough. That's a tough industry to be in. Those folks are working usually paycheck to paycheck. The hourly wage usually isn't great. If it's minimum wage or somewhere in between $10 an hour, something like that. Those folks are living paycheck to paycheck. They've got kids, they've got rent, they've got bills they've got to pay. Even if they're drawing unemployment, that's only at 66%. So if you could imagine working a minimum wage job,
right,
and then having your pay cut, almost 40%.
Wow.
And trying to make it on that, we want to have a safety net there for those folks too. So the other part of this, the first part helps the business. The second part helps the individual employees. So phase two would be we would appropriate $250,000.
Okay.
And then we would use the Sequoia Fund to administer that. And they would set up a grant program to where those businesses could come and say, here's my payroll for the average month, and they could get a grant to supplement their employees' income during the shutdown.
Excellent.
And then, so that's the second phase. The third part, how it trickles down is, even if it's not a tribally owned business, and maybe they only have one or two tribal members working for them, at the end of the day, the land that they're leasing or the business that they're leasing is leased either from the tribe or it's leased from a tribal citizen. If that business goes bankrupt and they're leasing from a tribal citizen, They're going to default on their lease payments,
That's
and
right.
that's income that tribal member isn't going to get moving forward if we lose a majority of these small businesses.
So in one way or another, this money starts here, but it trickles back down to a tribal enrolled
Correct.
member in the end.
And I think too, what's important to note, we as Cherokees, we're compassionate people.
Right.
We're caring people. I've seen that happen during this shutdown, during the pandemic. We've seen both tribal employees and tribal citizens step up and be good neighbors and help one another.
Right.
And this is just another way that we can do that to where we demonstrate the character and the value system that makes us Cherokee.
Very good. Very good. Well, this is a lot of these small businesses, the margins are so small already. I think
Truth.
you're right. And this is going to help them hopefully sustain through this, to continue to pay those employees that they had working for them, and to get them through this critical time. As we'd mentioned earlier, when we can take money off the table as much as possible during this hard time, people can focus more on their
Sure.
families, on staying healthy, washing their hands, and taking care of themselves.
Right.
Well, good. So if there's any more updates to this, and of course, come back on as this goes to Tribal Council and we start to discuss this. And if you have any more updates for the folks that are involved with this as stakeholders, per se, let's update the public.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would ask in closing is that for our tribal council members, and they have a copy of the resolution. I sent it to all the tribal council members last week, so they would have plenty of time to review it. Looking obviously for their support. I need their support to get
Right.
this done, but also I need our community members to call their council members and say, look, this is the right thing to do. Let's support this. This really could be just a feather in the cap to demonstrate who we are as Cherokee people.
That's unique and it's exceptional and something we can do here.
Absolutely.
I love it. All right. Ski.